The storm had been howling for 3 days, scouring the ice plains of Varen, 6 into a white oblivion. Snow hissed against Darius Vale's armor, whispering across the rifle laid flat against his chest. The weapon's matte barrel pointed downslope, its thermal regulator flickering faintly in the frozen air. Beneath the camouflage net, Darius lay still, his breath the only proof he was alive. He had stopped counting the hours. Time had lost its meaning somewhere between the first kill and the third sunrise. He shifted his cheek against the rifle stock, feeling the familiar bite of cold through the polymer surface. The motion was minimal, measured. A human heartbeat would have been enough to betray his position if the Dominion assassins were close. They were always close now. Darius had picked them off one by one over the past 48 hours, but the last 2 had gone silent, adapting to his tactics. That made them dangerous. The silence was never peace. It was the sound before someone died. Through the visor's lens, the landscape appeared as a shifting ocean of blues and whites. No vegetation, no sound but the wind. Somewhere beyond the nearest ridge, motion flickered, thermal readings indistinct but rhythmic. He magnified the feed, waiting. The signal vanished. He didn't curse or sigh. Darius Vale didn't waste breath on things he couldn't shoot. Instead, he marked the coordinates, adjusted his rangefinder, and watched the wind's angle through drifting snow crystals. Command had called him expendable reconnaissance. The mission brief had been simple. Neutralize Officer Cawthon of the Varick Dominion and disrupt their control grid before extraction. What the strategist hadn't known was that Cawthon's unit specialized in assassination, bioengineered predators in exoskeletal armor designed for one purpose. They had turned the mission into a hunt. The hunter and the hunted had traded places so many times Darius wasn't sure which role he filled anymore. He remembered his father's voice, the rasp of an old Alaskan hunter who'd taught him to breathe slower than frost forms. Patience doesn't make the shot. It lets the shot make itself. It had sounded poetic once. Now it was survival doctrine. The aliens' cloaks distorted heat, light, and sound, but they couldn't erase the physics of snow. When they moved, they left faint depressions, the whisper of pressure shifts, a rhythm Darius had learned to hear like a heartbeat in the storm. A flicker appeared again, lower this time, hugging the terrain. The sniper adjusted his sight, holding his breath. The wind broke, and in that instant, a silhouette resolved, sleek, narrow-limbed, gliding across the snow with mechanical precision. Darius counted 3 heartbeats, calculated drop and drift, and squeezed. The rail rifle hummed, exhaling a supersonic whisper. The target fell without ceremony. No sound, no flash, just a black shape dissolving into white silence. He shifted his scope. The second signature appeared instantly on the opposite flank. Clever. They used decoys. The shot he'd taken had baited them into revealing their counter. Darius ducked beneath the snow crest as a streak of plasma sizzled overhead, vaporizing ice into steam. He rolled left, sliding down the slope, rifle cradled tight. The heat pulse lit up the snowfield like lightning. When the air cleared, the world was still again. He crawled behind a frozen ridge and waited. His breathing steadied. They would reposition, expecting panic. Instead, Darius opened a small compartment on his gauntlet and activated a beacon decoy, a faint electromagnetic pulse identical to his suit's power signature. He tossed it into the storm. It blinked once and vanished into the flurry. A minute later, another plasma shot lanced the decoy's location. Predictable. He smiled without humor. The wind shifted westward. The faint tang of ozone reached his filters, evidence of a discharged weapon. He aligned Eidolon, the rifle's long body steady against the snow. The second assassin was repositioning, circling to confirm the kill. Darius sighted through the storm, compensating for interference until the faint shimmer of the alien's armor resolved through distortion. He waited. The alien paused, scanning the area, its helmet sweeping in arcs. Darius could almost see the decision forming, an apex predator realizing it had been outmaneuvered. He fired again. The alien dropped, motionless, its cloak flickering out. 2 down. That should have been all, but Darius knew better. There was always one left, the one watching, learning, waiting for overconfidence. The Varric never wasted resources. The last assassin would not rush. He'd wait until Darius moved to confirm the kill. The snow thickened, and visibility shrank to a few meters. Darius lowered his rifle and began crawling sideways, deliberately leaving a shallow trail. Every motion calculated, every footprint bait. When he reached the base of an ice shelf, he stilled again, melting into the terrain. His sensors caught faint tremors, soft, rhythmic impacts approaching from the right flank. The last assassin was following the trail. He counted breaths. The alien's outline appeared at the edge of the whiteout, tall and slender, blade drawn. Darius aimed, but didn't shoot. The distance was too close, the risk of counterfire too high. Instead, he waited until the alien passed his position, tracing the fake trail. Then, with a slow precision born of exhaustion and discipline, he rose behind the creature, rifle reversed in his grip. One solid thrust through the joint at the base of its skull. The alien convulsed once and fell forward, sinking into the snow. For a long moment, there was nothing but the wind again. Darius crouched beside the fallen body, scanning for any sign of movement. None came. He exhaled slowly, the breath misting against his visor. His hand trembled, not from fear but from cold, from fatigue, too long ignored. He tapped his comm link. Static replied. The storm had severed connection hours ago. Alone again. That was fine. He looked toward the horizon, where the ridges stretched like white waves under a dim blue sun. Somewhere beyond them, Officer Cawthon waited, orchestrating this hunt from a warm command post. Darius chambered a fresh round, sliding it into place with deliberate care. They sent assassins. He murmured into the snow, voice steady despite the exhaustion. He glanced at the three lifeless shapes half buried behind him. They missed. He started forward, one slow step at a time, disappearing into the storm that never stopped. Cawthon watched the flickering hologram of the snowfields with growing irritation. The human's life signs had vanished again, leaving only static echoes across the Dominion's tactical display. The officer's exoskeletal fingers tapped against the console in a rhythm of restrained anger. 3 assassins dead. 3 perfect constructs, undone by a creature whose species barely understood genetic refinement. The Dominion's engineers had promised efficiency. They had not accounted for human obstinacy. Adjust the thermal filters, Cawthon ordered. His voice carried the calm of someone who had learned to bury rage under layers of command. The nearest adjutant obeyed, adjusting the spectrum range. The display shimmered, expanding to reveal faint thermal disturbances, too faint, almost deliberate. Cawthon's mandibles flexed. The human was feeding the snow with heat decoys. It wasn't random. It was orchestration. Far below that orbiting command post, Darius Vale crept through a fissure carved by centuries of wind erosion. The crevasse offered cover, and more importantly, silence. His armor's power reserves were dropping, but conserving energy mattered less than movement now. He checked the rifle's diagnostics. Ammunition low, rail integrity stable. He had enough for the officer if he could draw him out. The ice tunnel opened into a cavern lit by pale reflections of the outside storm. Darius paused to listen. The storm above muffled sound, but his auditory sensors caught something else, a vibration too consistent to be natural. Drone scouts. He crouched behind a column of frozen rock, waiting until their shadows slid past. The Dominion's machines were efficient but lacked intuition. They looked for patterns. He made sure not to leave any. As he advanced, the memory of his fallen unit returned unbidden. Their final transmission, half a laugh, half a scream, had gone silent before command lost contact. Darius hadn't replied then. There'd been nothing to say. Orders had sent them into the blizzard, knowing extraction was unlikely. The Dominion considered human endurance an inconvenience. They hadn't yet learned what desperation could engineer. He reached a ridge that overlooked the alien encampment. Below, structures of black alloy jutted from the ice, pulsing with dim red light. In the center, a communication tower glowed faintly. Cthuan's base. Darius magnified his scope. He counted guards, few and all distant. The officer relied on his assassins. Overconfidence, a weakness he could use. The wind shifted direction, carrying static across his comms. For the first time in hours, a voice flickered through the interference. A Dominion broadcast, untranslated but rhythmic. Cthuan's voice. Darius didn't understand the words, but tone transcended language. It was taunting, self-assured. The alien believed the human cornered, slowly freezing to death in the wastes. The assumption steadied Darius's focus. The cold wasn't his enemy anymore. It was his ally, his camouflage, his weapon. He moved along the ridge, setting 3 shaped charges at intervals. Each one emitted a faint pulse, mimicking his armor's heat signature. To the Dominion sensors, it would look like multiple human signatures advancing from different vectors. He finished planting the last charge and retreated to higher ground, watching through the rifle's sight. Minutes later, the base reacted, searchlights flaring, drones fanning out. Perfect. He exhaled once, slow and controlled. The first explosion wasn't lethal. It was theatrical. A bloom of light, and snow ripped across the nearest slope. The drones recalibrated, triangulating false readings. Darius fired once into the chaos, shattering a power conduit on the tower's surface. The blast cascaded down the line, forcing the Dominion soldiers into disarray. The storm devoured the sound almost instantly, leaving confusion and panic below. Cthuan's composure cracked. He is not a soldier, the officer muttered to himself. He's a contagion. The human's unpredictability defied Dominion logic. No pattern, no rhythm, only instinct. It was a quality the Varric couldn't replicate, and Cthuan hated it. He ordered his command channel to open, linking directly to the final assassin still alive. Unit 7, the prototype hunter. In this, Cthuan hissed, "Bring me his heart." Darius detected movement seconds later, a blur of energy crossing his scope faster than he could track. The final assassin had arrived. Unlike the others, it didn't stalk or probe. It attacked. A plasma blade cut through the snow ridge where Darius had been prone moments earlier. The shock wave slammed him sideways, his rifle skidding across the ice. He rolled instinctively, drawing his sidearm, but the alien was gone, invisible again. He steadied his breath. No panic, no wasted motion. The cold was his clock. He waited, counting the rhythm of the wind, until he heard the faintest distortion behind him, a hiss of displacement. He spun, fired once, and the bullet struck armor. The assassin staggered, not dead but surprised. That hesitation was enough. Darius lunged, slamming into the alien, forcing both into the snowdrift. The impact jarred his ribs, but the rifle was within reach again. He rolled, lifted it, and fired point blank. The rail round punched through the creature's chest plate, leaving a smoldering hole. It fell back, limbs twitching before going still. Darius stared for a moment, chest heaving. It had taken seconds, but those seconds had cost him the last of his strength reserves. His armor's power meter blinked warning red. Above, Cthuan's sensors registered the assassin's death. He said nothing. His mandibles stilled, eyes narrowing at the static feed that replaced Unit 7's signal. The human had dismantled an entire elite unit alone, on foot, in sub-zero hell. For the first time in years, Cthuan felt something his genome had been engineered to suppress: fear. Darius sat in the snow, breath shallow, the rifle resting across his knees. The base below was still in chaos, Dominion soldiers scattering like insects under broken light. The storm thickened, covering tracks, erasing bodies. He looked toward the tower, its pulse steady through the haze. The officer would come soon. Pride wouldn't allow retreat. Darius knew that rhythm too. Arrogance always filled the silence before the final shot. He reloaded with deliberate slowness, each motion mechanical, precise. The cold gnawed at his joints, but his mind felt sharper than it had in days. The hunt was almost over. The alien command post glimmered faintly through the snow, a black shape daring him closer. He rose, one hand on the rifle, the other steadying against the wind. "Almost done," he muttered, voice raw, nearly lost in the storm. Above, Cohen was already descending, carried by the whine of a transport skimmer slicing through the clouds. Both hunter and prey were now converging on the same point, drawn together by inevitability. The storm screamed louder, as if it understood what came next. The storm began to ease when the transport skimmer cut through the clouds, its engines bleeding orange light into the snow. Darius watched from the ridge, the rifle braced against a mound of ice. His body trembled with exhaustion, yet his hands were steady. Below, the craft descended toward the Dominion outpost, stirring spirals of frost into the air. When it landed, the light faded, leaving the figure of Cawthon emerging from the mist. The officer's armor glowed faintly blue beneath the pale sun, each movement deliberate, regal. Darius felt a strange calm settle over him. It was always this way before the final shot, time thinning, sound falling away, everything narrowing to distance and intent. Cawthon moved toward the center of the clearing, scanning the ridges. He carried no escort. Arrogance again, or perhaps something deeper, a predator's belief that the hunt could end only by his own hand. Darius tracked the alien through the scope, aligning crosshairs with the point just below the throat joint. One shot, and it would be finished. Yet he hesitated. His fingers hovered above the trigger as a gust swept across the ice, shaking the rifle slightly. He adjusted, exhaled, and waited for the wind to settle. Patience was all that remained to him, the last echo of discipline in a body nearly broken. Cawthon's voice carried across the open snow, amplified through his armor. "Human sniper," he called, the words processed in a crude English. "Your endurance is admirable. Your deaths will be remembered." Darius smiled faintly. The alien's arrogance was ritual now, a recitation to hide unease. He toggled his comms, surprised when the channel connected through static. "You missed your assassins," Darius replied, voice low. "You'll miss too." The brief silence afterward confirmed what he already knew. The officer hadn't expected an answer. Cawthon's gaze shifted upward, as if he could sense the direction of the voice. "Your kind clings to defiance as though it were strength," he said. "But resistance is a delay, not victory." Darius sighted again, aligning carefully. "Delay long enough," he murmured, "and you don't need victory." He fired. The rifle thundered once, a sound swallowed almost instantly by the storm. Cawthon jerked sideways as the round struck his shoulder, armor flaring with disrupted energy fields. The alien staggered but didn't fall. The Dominion's shielding tech was stronger than expected, and Darius's rail charge was half spent. The officer turned, locating the sniper's position with uncanny precision. In a flash, a bolt of plasma tore through the ridge, vaporizing the snow where Darius had been seconds earlier. He rolled down the slope, landing hard, vision swimming. The rifle clattered from his hands, sliding out of reach. He crawled through the slush, chest heaving, every joint screaming. Another blast struck nearby, melting ice into boiling steam. He pressed his visor against the snow to cool it, the surface hissing. His instincts screamed for him to move, but his body refused. He looked up just as Cawthon appeared through the fog, towering over him, weapon drawn. The alien's eyes gleamed like shards of glass, cold and calculating. "So this is the human legend," Cawthon said quietly. Alone, frozen, dying in the dark, Darius pushed himself up on one knee. His rifle was a meter away. The alien stepped closer, blade poised. "You've killed my assassins," Cawthon continued, "but that only proves your species survives through luck." "Not luck," Darius rasped. "Pattern recognition." His hand moved slowly, fingers brushing the rifle's grip. Cawthon raised his weapon for the killing blow, but Darius was already pulling the trigger. He hadn't needed to aim. The rifle sight was calibrated to his motion sensor. The round punched through Cawthon's chest, snapping the officer backward. The alien collapsed into the snow, light leaking from the wound like liquid fire. For a moment, neither moved. The wind stilled entirely, as if the world itself were pausing to acknowledge the end. Then Cawthon's voice broke the quiet, weaker now, but laced with bitter admiration. "You fight beyond logic." Darius lowered the rifle, chest rising in uneven rhythm. "We don't need logic," he said. "We need reason. And mine was simple. You started this." The officer's breath rattled once more, then stopped. The light in his armor faded until only darkness remained. Darius sat back, exhaustion flooding through him like gravity. The storm around him began to thin, revealing a dim horizon of fractured light. The Dominion base below was in ruin, silent, half-buried, its signals dead. He activated his comm link again, sending a coded transmission to command. The beacon pulsed weakly, struggling through interference. "Target neutralized," he said. His voice sounded distant, detached, like someone else speaking through him. "Area secure." Static answered. No confirmation. He didn't expect one. His suit's power reserves were nearly gone, heating systems failing. He looked at the body of Cawthon, already half covered in snow. "You sent assassins," he murmured, "and you missed." He pulled his rifle close, resting it across his knees. The silence that followed was almost comforting. He thought of his unit again, of laughter shared over ration packs, and the quiet rituals of soldiers too tired to dream. They had believed the war unwinnable, but none of them had stopped fighting. Maybe that was what humanity was, the refusal to stop, no matter the statistics. The thought warmed him more than his failing heaters ever could. The storm broke entirely, revealing the faint shimmer of dawn through the alien sky. Lights scattered across the frozen plain, turning shards of ice into prisms. Darius watched it, eyes heavy but clear. Somewhere beyond the horizon, he imagined the signal reaching home, proof that one human, alone, had survived where none were expected to. He felt the cold creeping deeper, a quiet weight settling in his limbs. He didn't fight it. He'd done what he came to do. As the light spread, he adjusted the rifle one final time, aiming it toward the empty expanse. The horizon shimmered, endless and bright. "They missed," he whispered again, a trace of pride in his fading voice. "But I didn't." The wind rose once more, softer now, carrying his words across the ice until they vanished into silence. The snow drifted over the bodies, erasing footprints, erasing evidence, leaving only the rifle's black outline in the pale morning light, a monument to patience, precision, and the quiet defiance of one human who never missed.